The old Victorian house stood on a hill overlooking the town. A silent sentinel, harbouring secrets within its decaying walls, locals whispered tales of a haunted mirror. A mirror residing in the home's dusty attic, hidden beneath layers of cobwebs and forgotten memories. Legend had it the mirror served as a portal, a gateway to another world, a world inhabited by restless spirits. The attic, shrouded in an eerie silence, was filled with discarded furniture and shadows dancing in the moonlight that sliced through the boarded-up windows. Dust motes swirled in the stagnant air. The air itself felt heavy, suffocating. It was as though the attic itself was exhaling a lifetime of sorrow and despair. The mirror hidden under a tattered sheet seemed to pulsate with an unseen energy. Sarah, a young woman with an insatiable curiosity for the paranormal, had recently inherited the house. Drawn by the local legends, she decided to venture into the attic, determined to uncover the truth behind the haunted mirror. Armed with a flashlight and a sense of trepidation, Sarah navigated through the labyrinth of forgotten relics. Goosebumps prickled her skin as a cold draft whispered past her ear. Finally, she found it. The haunted mirror. Its ornate frame, tarnished with age, was cold to the touch. The silver backing was mottled with dark spots obscuring the reflection. Sarah ran her fingers along the frame. A shiver shot up her arm. It wasn't the cold. It felt like dread. Holding her breath, Sarah wiped away the grime with her sleeve. The mirror remained stubbornly obscured. Frustrated, she stepped back. Suddenly a face flashed in the mirror's depths, a ghostly face with hollow eyes, a face that wasn't her own. Sarah gasped, stumbling backward, her heart pounding in her chest. She blinked, but the face was gone. Had she imagined it? Taking a deep breath, Sarah tried to rationalize what she had seen. A trick of the light? A figment of her imagination? She leaned closer to the mirror, peering into its murky depths. For a moment, she saw nothing but her own reflection. Then the face reappeared. This time it was closer, staring directly at her. Its eyes, filled with an unspeakable sadness, seemed to pierce her soul. A cold breath caressed her ear. She could have sworn she heard her name whispered, a ghostly echo that sent shivers down her spine. Sarah spun around, but the attic was empty. The only sound was the creaking of the old house. Fear, cold and sharp, began to grip her. She wanted to run, to escape the suffocating atmosphere of the attic, but something held her rooted to the spot. She found herself drawn back to the mirror. The ghostly face remained, its eyes locked on hers. Sarah's fear gave way to a strange curiosity. Who was this spectral being trapped on the other side, and what did it want? As she stared into the mirror, she noticed the background behind the face began to shift. It was no longer the reflection of the attic. It was something else, something disturbing. Section 5. The Mirror's Grip. The reflection in the mirror swirled, the attic disappearing, replaced by a desolate landscape, a barren wasteland under a sky of perpetual twilight. Twisted skeletal trees clawed at the oppressive sky, their branches like grasping claws. The air itself seemed thick with despair. Sarah couldn't tear her eyes away. It was as though the mirror held her captive, its ghostly energy seeping into her very being. The face in the mirror remained, its eyes following her every move. Sarah felt a strange connection to it, a sense of shared loneliness and despair. It was as though the being in the mirror recognized something in her, something that resonated with its own tormented existence. She found herself reaching out to the mirror, her fingers tracing the outline of the face. The cold glass sent another shiver down her spine, yet she couldn't pull away. Section 6. A glimpse into chaos. The desolate landscape in the mirror rippled, the ghostly face twisted in what seemed like agony. Sarah felt a surge of panic. What was happening? Was she causing this? The air grew colder, and the shadows in the attic seemed to deepen and rise. The house creaked and groaned around her, as if echoing the torment she witnessed in the mirror's reflection. Then, just as suddenly as it began, it stopped. The ghostly face was gone, replaced by the same desolate landscape, but now it was eerily still. The silence was deafening. Sarah stared into the mirror, her heart pounding in her chest. What had she stumbled upon? What was this place reflected in the mirror's depths? And where had the ghostly face gone? Section 7. A desperate plea. A whisper, barely audible, broke the silence. It seemed to emanate from the mirror itself. "Help me!" it pleaded. The voice filled with an anguish that chilled Sarah to the bone. Instinctively, Sarah understood. The ghostly face, the desolate landscape, it wasn't a threat. It was a plea for help from a soul trapped in a realm beyond human comprehension. The fear that had gripped her moments before was replaced by a wave of compassion. This entity, whatever it was trapped, alone, and suffering. She couldn't turn her back on it. She had to help, but how? How do you help a being trapped in a mirror, a reflection from another world? Days turned into nights. Sarah found herself drawn back to the attic, back to the mirror. She tried to communicate with the entity trapped within, to understand its plight, to offer any comfort she could. The entity, though unable to speak clearly, seemed to find solace in her presence. It revealed glimpses of its past, fragmented images of a life lived in another time, another place. She learned its name was Elias. He had been a scholar, a seeker of forbidden knowledge, who had stumbled upon a ritual that shattered the barriers between worlds. He had become trapped in the mirror, a prisoner of his own curiosity. The desolate landscape, he revealed, was not a place, but a reflection of his own tormented soul. As Sarah delved deeper into Elias's story, she felt the boundaries between their worlds begin to blur. Objects began to move within the attic, seemingly influenced by unseen hands. Cold spots intensified and the air grew heavy with the scent of decay. She saw flickering shadows at the edge of her vision, heard whispers in the dead of night. Was Elias reaching out? Or were the barriers between their worlds crumbling? Despite the growing unease, Sarah refused to abandon Elias. She felt a responsibility for him, a connection that transcended the physical world. She spent hours researching ancient texts, desperately searching for a way to free him from his mirrored prison. She wouldn't let him suffer alone, not if she could help it. One night, as Sarah sat before the mirror, poring over an ancient grimoire, she felt a cold hand grip her wrist. She looked up, her heart leaping into her throat. Standing before her, partially formed, was Elias. His spectral form shimmered in the dim light, his eyes filled with a mixture of hope and despair. "You found it," he whispered, his voice a ragged rasp. "The way..." But before he could finish, the mirror pulsed with a blinding light. Sarah cried out, shielding her eyes. When the light subsided, Elias was gone. The mirror was empty, reflecting only her terrified face. Had she failed him? Had the attempt to free him shattered his essence, scattering him further into the abyss? Sarah stared into the mirror, her heart heavy with a grief she couldn't explain. The mirror, once a window into another world, now reflected only her own image, or so she thought. As she turned to leave, she caught a flicker of movement at the edge of the reflection. A fleeting glimpse of a desolate landscape, a twisted tree silhouetted against a blood-red sky. And within its branches she could have sworn she saw a face filled with a profound sadness, a face that would forever haunt her dreams. The mirror remained in the attic, a silent sentinel, a constant reminder of the boundaries that separate the world of the living from the realm of the dead. And Sarah was left with the chilling realization that some doors, once opened, can never be truly closed. The mirror that saw ghosts had shown her a world she could never have imagined, and in its reflection she had glimpsed a darkness that would forever linger in the corners of her soul.